What do you do when your plans get derailed? We've had a ton of rain here in Middle Georgia in the last 24 to 36 hours. More rain than I've ever seen here, maybe ever seen, I don't know, but it's a ton of rain. I was driving home from work today, and one of the banks had overflowed, one of the rivers had overflowed its banks, and part of the roadway was, it was there, but it was inaccessible to me in a Honda Civic. There were some semi-trucks that were going forward. There were some lifted trucks, bigger trucks that were able to get through this. I was going to float away if I went through it in my Civic. And so I stopped, I looked. It was kind of incredible how much water was there, and it had flowed over into Mike Adams' yard in his parking lot there. And I'll show a video of it here. It's just incredible how much water there was. And so I stopped, I looked at the problem, if it even was a problem. It's just a situation to deal with. I can't go forward. I didn't sit there and wish I had another truck. I didn't sit there and criticize myself for not having a bigger truck. I didn't sit there and criticize myself for not having known that this might have happened. And that might sound silly in this example, but how many times in life have I paralyzed myself? Not that life has paralyzed me, but I've paralyzed myself because I've given myself such a hard time that I didn't plan for a certain event. I think if we're really honest with ourselves, most of our plans don't quite go the way we planned, because planning requires us to think about the future, and the future hardly ever does exactly what we think it's going to do. So this whole idea about our plans being derailed, whether on a small scale or a big scale, I think happens way more often than we realize, or way more often than we give ourselves credit for. And I've given myself such a hard time before for not having known that something was going to happen in the future. But here I am. I can't go forward. I've got to do something. I've got to turn around. And there's so many life lessons from this, because what I did was I turned around, and I knew that I could go out to I-16 and loop all the way back around and get on the other side of this issue. But that was a long loop. I knew I could make it that way. So I started going out that direction, knowing that that way would work. And I realized there's a lot of other cars turning around with me, but I'm the only one going this way. And so I look over to my left in Jeffersonville Road. There's a whole bunch of cars going out that way. I thought maybe they know something I don't know. And so I changed my course. Instead of going out I-16, I went this way, not knowing what this way held, but I was willing to take a 5-minute bet that maybe that way was right or better. And if it didn't work out, I could always come back to I-16. And again, this might be a silly example as far as driving and coming home, but how many times in life, and maybe you resonate with this, maybe you don't, but it certainly resonates with me, and I know I'm not the only human being on the planet that has thought like this before. How many times have I said, well, that didn't work out, so I'm going to try this way, only to find out that this way, in hindsight, wasn't the best way, and yet I have defended my wrong decision and just gone with it because it was my decision. Because I had too much ego, or I had too much pride to say, you know what, this solution that I tried didn't work, let me try this one. And so what did I do? I went off towards the Jeffersonville Road with the rest of the traffic, and it worked out. But I didn't give myself a hard time for not knowing that in advance. I have so many times criticized myself that I didn't know what hindsight was going to know. I have criticized myself so many times for my real-time sight not being hindsight. Like, I should have known that was the better option. But I wouldn't have known that that was the better option if I didn't try this option first. And it reminds me, and this really is an object lesson for me, one, don't get stuck in the problem. Look for a solution. I didn't stay and just stare at the road that I couldn't pass. I figured out a way around it. When we come to a plan in life that didn't quite go the way that we thought it was going to go, don't get stuck in the problem. And even ask yourself this question: is it really a problem, or is it just a situation that we need to deal with? I think sometimes I've set myself up to, almost go to battle with a problem because I've called it a problem, and the problem must have a solution, and a problem must be fixed, and I have to be the hero, and I have to get through this thing. Well, what if it's not a problem? What if it's just a situation of life that we get to figure out another option how to get around? Is it really a problem, or is it just a situation? Either way, because we make up the problem in our mind. The size of the problem has to do with the amount of thinking that we have about it. So it's a situation. If we're just really willing to look at it as just a situation. Maybe it's a tough situation. Maybe there's a lot of logistical issues with a situation, but we don't have to make it a problem where we have to find the solution. It's just a situation. We need to try another option. So don't get stuck in the situation. Don't get stuck in the problem. Look for a solution. Look for another option. And then try an option. Don't analysis paralysis. I have been guilty of this so many times in my life, trying to figure out, well, which option is right? When really I took more time trying to get somewhere because I was dead set on figuring out what was right before I even got started. But part of figuring out what is best is getting started. If I had just sat next to Mike Adams' parking lot and tried to figure out what is the best option, I would have eventually gotten home. But it would have taken me a lot longer. What helped me figure out that going out towards Jeffersonville Road was the better option was that I headed out towards I-16. Movement, creating momentum, helps us find the better solution. Not just in finding out another way to get home for me today, but in life. I remember several years ago when we moved to Illinois, we had an apartment lined up that we were going to stay in for 4-6 weeks, however long it took us to find a house and figure the whole housing thing out. And so we got there and realized the apartment that we had reserved was on the second story, which is okay, but these are all outside accessible units. The railing on the once you went upstairs on that walkway area, the railing had gaps in it that were 3 feet high. Our kids were 3 and 1 at the time, and they could just walk right through this gap. There was no washer, or there was a washer dryer hookup, but it smelled like cigarettes. And there's a smoking unit. Katie and I don't smoke, and we realized very quickly this is not going to work. And so this is about finding a solution by taking action. So we called the guy who owns the place, and we said, this isn't going to work for us. What else is going to work for us? He said, I need to figure it out. So we went to McDonald's. We ordered dinner. We just driven all day. We know 2 people in town. We eat McDonald's. We're at the park, and we're talking through what are the solutions, what could possibly be. And we said, we'll just go and stay in a hotel for a week if we have to figure this out. Well, fortunately, the guy came back and said, I have another unit on the first floor over here. It doesn't have washer-dryer hookups, but there's a little laundromat on site just 4 doors down. Okay, we can do this. And instead of getting stuck in the problem, we took action. And we had a couple different options that would have worked, and one worked out. Now, it was a pain for us, Katie mostly, to do the laundry 4 doors down from us. But we had an apartment that we could stay in where we weren't concerned for our kids' safety and that didn't smell like cigarette smoke all the time. Don't get stuck in the problem. Don't get stuck just, woe is me, what's wrong? Find a solution and go after it. And don't worry if it's the right solution. God gives us wisdom to know what's best next. And maybe in hindsight we realize if we had known what we knew in hindsight, we would have gone straight that direction. But we don't get hindsight without taking action. Real-time sight is not hindsight. And yet I have criticized and I've given myself such a hard time before that I didn't know in real time what hindsight would have showed me. Don't get stuck in the problem. Take action. Don't criticize yourself. Take the next best step that seems to be the next best step to you. And you might find out it wasn't the best step at the time, but at the time, it was the best step. Based on my experience, based on my education, based on what I guessed to be true, I made the best decision that I knew. Okay, great. Hindsight might tell us I could have done something differently, but I didn't know that at the time. And don't take yourself so seriously. I've heard this before, and it's every time I think about it, it rings so true with me. Don't take yourself so seriously, Derek. When I came to this place in the road where I couldn't pass by with my Honda Civic, I didn't take it seriously. It was just a thought of, I need to go find another way home, and I can do it. When we run into situations in life, I'm not calling them problems. When we run into situations in life, let's not take ourselves so seriously. Let's realize that there is a way around this. We can do hard things. We can rely on God to give us wisdom that we don't have on our own, and use the experience and the knowledge and the education that we have to take the next best step. Realizing that in hindsight, I find it really interesting that I need to keep on saying that hindsight is not real sight. Because I think that that's the thing that I've struggled with so much in my life, is that hindsight or real-time sight is not hindsight, and yet I've criticized myself and given myself such a hard time for not knowing what the future was going to tell me. So as I'm thinking about myself in this entire object lesson and story, what I'm really taking away is this idea that hindsight comes from taking action. And I make decisions based on real-time sight. I don't make decisions based on hindsight. Don't take yourself so seriously. Derek, don't take yourself so seriously. Don't get stuck in the problem. Look for solutions. Take action. Gain momentum. Don't take yourself so seriously. It doesn't have to be a problem if we don't make it a problem. It's a situation that we need to work through. Have a great day.